Have you heard about the recent surge in respiratory illnesses in children in China? In mid-October, whispers of these illnesses started to circulate, causing a ripple of concern. The local media picked up on this, reporting on the 21st of November about potential clusters of undiagnosed pneumonia in children. It seemed like a mystery was unfolding, a puzzle waiting to be solved. But as investigations delved deeper, the mystery started to unravel. The illnesses, it appeared, were not so mysterious after all. The culprits were identified as known pathogens, among them Mycoplasma pneumonia, a bacteria notorious for causing pneumonia. Also in the lineup were respiratory syncytial virus, adenovirus, and influenza virus. These familiar foes were not new to the scene, having been identified in numerous respiratory illnesses in the past. Now one may wonder, why would these known pathogens cause such a stir? The answer lies in timing. The surge in illnesses was showing up earlier in the season than usual. But this wasn't entirely unexpected. After all, China had recently lifted its COVID-19 restrictions, and similar patterns had been observed in other countries following easing of restrictions. The World Health Organization chimed in on the 23rd of November, advising against travel restrictions and suggesting that the uptick in illnesses was not out of the ordinary. The situation, it seemed, was under control and the illnesses were not indicative of a new pathogen. Despite this, the situation in China was causing ripples across the globe. The surge in pediatric illnesses was being watched closely, with some even calling for a ban on travel from China. But was this truly necessary? Was there a new unknown threat lurking? Or was this simply a resurgence of known pathogens in a new season? But why is there an uptick in these illnesses now? As we peel back the layers of this unfolding situation, we'll delve deeper into the factors at play. Perhaps the answer lies not in the presence of a new threat, but in our understanding of the old ones. The mystery, it seems, is not so mysterious after all. The COVID-19 pandemic and resulting precautions have had unexpected side effects. In an interesting twist, the stringent measures that were put in place to curb the spread of this novel virus have inadvertently created an environment ripe for the resurgence of other known pathogens. Take China, for example. The country had adopted a zero-COVID policy, implementing restrictions far more extreme than those we've seen elsewhere. This policy was in place until late 2022 when it was finally lifted. The aftermath and uptick in respiratory illnesses among children, particularly in the northern regions of the country. Now, this isn't as alarming as it sounds. These illnesses are not new or mysterious, but rather they are caused by familiar culprits, pathogens like Mycoplasma pneumoniae, the respiratory syncytial virus, adenovirus, and the influenza virus. These organisms have been around for a while, causing periodic outbreaks of respiratory illnesses. But why the sudden surge, you may ask? Well, during the period of stringent COVID-19 restrictions, exposure to these pathogens was significantly reduced. This lack of exposure created what experts call an immunity gap. With fewer people having immunity to these diseases, the population became more susceptible. So when the restrictions were lifted, there was a burst of cases, all happening at once. And China isn't alone in this. Other countries that have lifted COVID-19 restrictions have reported similar trends. Last year, for instance, American children experienced an earlier than usual surge of the respiratory syncytial virus, a phenomenon attributed to the same immunity gap. So, in essence, the lifting of COVID-19 restrictions in China and elsewhere has inadvertently set the stage for the resurgence of other respiratory illnesses. It's an unexpected side effect, a ripple in the pond of public health, if you will. However, despite these explanations, some believe there's more to the story. Several Republicans have raised concerns about these illnesses and their potential impact on the US. This concern took form as a letter penned by 5 prominent Republican senators, Senators Marco Rubio and Rick Scott of Florida, J.D. Vance of Ohio, Tommy Tuberville of Alabama, and Mike Braun of Indiana put their concerns to paper, urging President Joe Biden to consider a travel ban from China. The letter, dated the 1st of December, painted a picture of a looming threat. The senators wrote, "The world faces another unknown pathogen emanating from the PRC that could spread to other countries, including the United States." They argued that a swift response, a travel ban, could save the US from death, lockdowns, mandates, and further outbreaks later. This call to action was based on their belief in the existence of a new, dangerous illness. They referred to it as "this new illness," a phrase that carries a significant weight of alarm. However, it's worth noting that this assertion isn't backed by the current evidence available, which does not point to a new pathogen. The senators' concerns didn't stop at the letter. They took to social media, specifically on a platform formerly known as Twitter, to further voice their worries. Senator Rubio, in a tweet dated the same day as the letter, warned against repeating the mistakes from COVID-19. He urged for a travel ban on China until we gain further knowledge on this virus. He referred to the situation as a mystery pneumonia outbreak, a term that further fuels the mystery and fear. The next day, Senator Scott echoed similar sentiments. He tweeted that the US must do everything possible to prevent this new illness from reaching American shores. These calls for action and caution paint a picture of a mysterious, unknown threat. But is there a new, unknown pathogen at play here? The evidence suggests that the illnesses in China are not so mysterious after all. Let's break down the situation. The World Health Organization, alongside independent experts, have pointed out that the illnesses are likely due to well-known pathogens. These include Mycoplasma pneumoniae, a bacteria that causes pneumonia, as well as respiratory syncytial virus, adenovirus, and the influenza virus. These pathogens are not new, nor are they unique to China. They exist globally and are known to cause respiratory illnesses, particularly in children. The recent surge in China, while concerning, is not out of the ordinary. In fact, it's expected given the recent lifting of COVID-19 restrictions. Remember, last year, American children experienced an earlier than usual surge of respiratory syncytial virus. This was likely due to an immunity gap phenomenon, where public health precautions during the COVID-19 pandemic reduced exposure to a variety of pathogens. This left more people without immunity and susceptible to these diseases, causing a burst of cases in the population at the same time. China has experienced a similar situation after lifting its zero-COVID policy in late 2022. Despite this evidence, some have chosen to frame the situation differently. Senators Rubio, Scott, Vance, Tuberville, and Braun, for instance, have used misleading language, referring to the illnesses as a new and mysterious disease. They've suggested that the world faces an unknown pathogen emanating from China, and that the prudent response is to halt travel from that country. But the evidence does not support this. As of now, there's no novel pathogen, there's no new disease. There's only the resurgence of known respiratory illnesses due to the lifting of COVID-19 restrictions. Rubio's claims of a mystery pneumonia outbreak and Scott's insistence that the US must prevent this new illness from reaching American shores are not founded on the current understanding of the situation. They are, in essence, creating a narrative that is not supported by the evidence at hand. So, what's the real danger here? It's not a mysterious new illness. It's misinformation and a lack of understanding of the facts. The real danger might not be a new pathogen, but the potential for a larger outbreak of known diseases. As we delve deeper into understanding the recent surge in respiratory illnesses in children in northern China, it's crucial to note that the real threat here might not be an unidentified disease, but rather a larger outbreak of familiar foes. You see, the world has been grappling with a phenomenon known as the immunity gap. This has been brought about by the stringent public health measures put in place to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. With less exposure to a variety of pathogens, many individuals, especially children, are left without immunity to these diseases. This lack of immunity, coupled with the lifting of restrictions, paves the way for a simultaneous burst of cases, as we've seen in the United States with respiratory syncytial virus or RSV. Similarly, in China, the lifting of the zero COVID policy, which was more extreme than any measures implemented in the US, has likely contributed to this surge in pediatric illnesses. So what's the real danger here? It's the potential for these known diseases to spread rapidly among populations with reduced immunity. It's a stark reminder of the importance of maintaining public health measures and vigilance in monitoring these situations. Contrary to the fear-mongering and misinformation, it's not a new, mysterious illness that we should be worried about. Instead, it's the resurgence of known illnesses that have the potential to cause widespread outbreaks. And while the urge to call for travel bans and drastic measures may seem like the prudent response, it's essential to remember that these decisions should be guided by evidence, not fear. The key to effectively managing these threats lies in our understanding of them. That's why it's so important to rely on accurate information and expert advice. In the face of fear, knowledge is our greatest ally. It's our best tool for preventing panic and ensuring we respond appropriately to any health threat. As always, information and understanding are our best defenses against fear and misinformation.